Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Central Europe. I hope everybody has had a good week and is looking forward to a fantastic weekend. In today's live class, I am going to look at the IELTS reading section with you, and we're going to discuss some strategies about how to build your Band 9 fluency. So how to increase your speed and fluent type reading so that you can maximize your scores. Again, for this lesson, it's presented to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS success, please visit us there. And for the general IELTS, check us out at IELTShelp.com. That's general IELTShelp.com. On both of our websites, we have lots and lots of materials for you, including original practice exams with lots of reading materials. Welcome, Abhishek, Nikhil, Rashika. Oh, it's good to see many students joining in. This is a members chat class. Everybody is welcome to watch and practice. We will have an all chat class coming up in about 90 minutes that will focus on task 2 writing, specifically the body paragraphs and the conclusion. Hi, Byron. Okay, everyone, to sign up for our premium package at aehelp.com, visit us here. This is the page with the blue background. You can click that big red button to join the premium package there. The code R4TYJ will get you a 20% discount, so you can use that when you're signing up. And you can use the same code on our general IELTS website as well at gieltshelp.com. Click that big red button there to sign up for the premium package, get access to our videos, practice exams, strategies, and the strategy that I'm going to teach today. So this strategy is both in the academic and general version of our courses. And definitely when you use our course, you will improve your band score, as do thousands of students every month, and then succeed in the IELTS exam. If you have any questions, send us an email to adrian@aehelp.com. I will gladly answer your questions. All right. Let's get into today's lesson. So today reading, and this lesson will be followed by another lesson, our task 2 lesson for everyone. And then tomorrow we will have a question and answer session for members. So Hani, Abhishek, Byron, Oas, Rashika, Nikhil, Abhishek, get your questions and answers ready for tomorrow. And we'll finish the week off with a speaking part 2 class for everyone. Okay, so let me just get rid of this here from yesterday, and we'll look at our reading passage for the day. This is coming from our 9th exam that we'll be releasing in 2021. And here, the title of our reading is The Formation of the Himalayas. All right, so we're not worried about the questions right now. We're not worried about content right now. We're not worried so much about comprehension right now. We're worried about fluency. So one of the big complaints for students in the IELTS exam is, I don't have enough time to read the IELTS passage. Does anybody feel that way? Any of our members feel like they don't have enough time to read the IELTS passage? It's definitely a common complaint that we get. People saying, I don't have enough time to read the IELTS passage. And then they say, so I just skim read, but that doesn't seem to work very well. I get lots of answers. Yeah, so we hear that in one way or another, oftentimes, okay? Yeah, so Abhishek says especially in passage 3. Okay. So here's the good news. 20 minutes is definitely enough time. Okay. So 20 minutes is enough time to read and answer. Okay. 2 minutes thinking, 10 minutes reading, 8 minutes answering. Okay, so that's kind of how you should think about this, everyone. So for each passage, you should spend about 20 minutes, give or take 1 or 2 minutes. You should have about 2 minutes to think about the title, the questions. Then you should read the passage in about 10 minutes, and then you should answer in about 8 minutes. That's lots of time for each passage. And I'm going to show you what you need to do here a little bit more, so hang in there. Okay, keep this in mind. So keep in mind that an average grade 12 student in the US or UK can read a passage like this in 6 minutes and answer most questions correctly. Okay. Why is that important, especially for academic IELTS students? If you get to university, the average student in the US or UK will read a passage like this in 6 minutes and answer most of the questions, and they are your competition in university. So if you cannot do a passage like this, especially for those of you who are looking to do the academic and go to university, what will happen in university? So what will happen in college when you're there and you get lots and lots of reading material that's much more advanced? You have to think about that, okay? So here's another piece of advice. To effectively, and the key here is the word effectively, improve your reading, you must be able to separate out the skills of reading comprehension versus reading fluency. Okay? Practice each on their own and then combine them. So yesterday we practiced reading comprehension. How do you understand the content of the passage? Asking what, why, how, visualizing. Okay, so focusing on content. Today we're going to focus on fluency. So today's focus is on fluency. Okay. And there are lots of different exercises that you can do to improve your reading fluency, your speed of reading. So if you feel that you cannot read and answer a passage in 20 minutes, you have to focus on your fluency. And there are different steps to do this. The first step is skim read the passage for, let's take it one step at a time. Skim read a paragraph for challenging words and say each twice aloud. If you do not know their pronunciation or meaning, then check online. Today you have some great tools. Google is great for this. Okay, so Google even has a slow mode pronunciation practice integration now. Has anybody seen that? Has anybody seen Google's new pronunciation practice feature where you can actually slow down the speech and get Google to pronunciate the word for practice in different languages, especially in English? Has anybody seen that? I highly recommend trying it. I don't want to switch to my browser and everything right now, but it's available. If you just check the meaning of a word on Google, then Google will now have a pronunciation feature that you can practice with. Okay, so Firdavs, Nikhil, Ois, Abhishek, and Rashika say, yes, I've seen that. Great, that's good. I'm happy that you're exploring and you've identified that. So definitely use that, okay? All right, so we're going to do that right now, this step one. So again, step one, this is reading. So it's very important that you read with me and you practice with me, okay? And read aloud. You have to use your aloud reading today, okay? And we're going to skim read the paragraph for challenging words. We're going to say each one twice. It's very important to do this twice. Okay, of course it goes a little bit faster when you have a teacher who knows how to pronounce the words. Okay, and another point to keep in mind is more is better than less. If you kind of think it might be challenging, then say it twice aloud. So more is better than less. Okay. All right. So here we go. This is a part of our technique called power reading that you can learn more about on the websites. So we're going to start from the top here, the formation of the Himalayas. So I'm skim reading, and here I would be doing this quietly, okay? So here, if you're doing this at home, you can underline this. This is for practice, so this is not a skill for the actual exam. This is what you're doing, practicing before the exam. I just want to make that really clear. Okay, everyone, so let's do this. Start with me. 3, 2, 1. Himalayas, Himalayas. Range, range. Separates, separates. Subcontinent, subcontinent. Himalayas. Legendary, legendary. Mount Everest, Mount Everest. Massive, massive. Stretching, stretching. 2,400, 2,400. Kilometers, kilometers. Roughly, roughly. Arc, arc. Clearest, clearest. Theory, theory. Continental drift, continental drift. Continents, continents. Relative, relative. 400, 400. Abraham, Abraham. Ortelius, Ortelius. Generally, generally. Okay, so you'll get better and better at this as you go. Now, this is a very important step for the next step. So notice how I underlined them. And again, more is better than less. Here, I did a collocation together. And sometimes short words can be tricky to pronounce. So don't just think it's long words like subcontinent here or Himalayas. Notice how names and numbers I focused on. So 2,400. I find a lot of students get stuck on names and numbers. So here we're building your fluency so that you can build up your speed so that you can read quickly. Everybody good so far? So everybody following me with this first step. Okay, so I'm skimming for difficult words. I'm pronouncing them twice, loud and clear. This becomes very important for my next step. Okay. Everybody good so far? Thumbs up, yes. Fist bump, all of those are good signs. Okay. All right, so step number 2 is, okay, Janil says thumbs up. Okay, cool, is read complete phrases and then sentences. Sentences. Clearly and aloud. Okay, So it seems like a tedious task, and you don't have to do this all the time, but just doing it once or twice with one passage per week will really help to improve your fluency. Students who have followed my advice on this, many of them have sent me emails or have come back to me and said, hey, Adrian, wow, I literally improved my reading speed by like 30-40% over a month, 6 weeks. Okay, so right now I'm going to read phrases and then sentences. Now, phrases and sentences are usually separated by conjunctions and adjective pronouns, okay? So, or adverbial pronouns. So here we go. Read with me, okay? The Himalayas are a mountain range in Asia. The Himalayas are a mountain range in Asia. Okay, so I'm going to stop there. And then I'm going to read my second phrase, which separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. So here I have two phrases. The Himalayas are a mountain range in Asia. And then the second phrase is, which separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. Okay, now, having a glass of water with this exercise is a great idea so you can wet your whistle and so you don't fumble like I just did. And I definitely recommend drinking water lots when you're studying anyway. All right, so here we go with the next one. The Himalayas contain some of the world's highest mountains, including the highest point in the world, the legendary Mount Everest. The Himalayas contain some of the world's highest mountains, including the highest point in the world, the legendary Mount Everest. Okay, I hope everybody's reading with me aloud. Okay, so I'm reading phrases and then I'm reading sentences. The range is not only tall, it is also massive, stretching 2,400 kilometers across a roughly west-east arc. See why it's important to pronounce those twice? Okay, here we go. The range is not only tall, it is also massive, stretching 2,400 kilometers across a roughly west-east arc. Now here we go. The creation of the Himalayas is one of the clearest examples of the theory of continental drift, which states that Earth's continents have moved relative to each other over millions of years. The creation of the Himalayas is one of the clearest examples of the theory of continental drift, which states that Earth's continents have moved relative to each other over millions of years. Put forward over 400 years ago by Abraham Ortelius, continental drift is an example of a scientific theory which is generally accepted as fact today. Okay, so now we've read phrases, then we've read sentences. Okay, last one. Put forward over 400 years ago by Abraham Ortelius, continental drift is an example of a scientific theory which is generally accepted as fact today. So what I'm doing here is I'm pushing my fluency. Everybody with me so far? Any questions so far? As we go to our next step. Okay, we've got one more step here I actually got two more steps for fluency here. Okay, everybody good so far? Any questions? Elite, it's better late than never. Verdov says no questions. It's fine. Okay, now comes the challenging part. Step 3 is the challenging step. Okay, read the paragraph together fluently about 30% faster than you think you can. At times, let's make this a new sentence. So at times, fumbling or skipping words is okay. The goal here is to push the limits of your fluency, the speed of your eyes and your mind. Okay? So in order to be faster, in order to be better, you have to push yourself. You have to push your limits. If you always stop at your limit, progress is slow. If you push past your limits, progress is faster. Is that clear? So it may feel awkward. It should feel awkward. But you must push past your limits. Okay, so I'm going to do this. And then try it with me. So go as fast as you can. No, go faster than you can, fumbling and skipping some of the words. If you're reading all of the words, you're not going fast enough. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to read this. Go as fast as you can. If you can't go as fast as me, that's okay. If you can go faster than me, that's fine as well. So here we go. The Himalayas are mountain range in Asia, which separates Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. The Himalayas contain the rest of high mountain, including the highest point in the world, the legendary Mount Everest. The range is not only tall, but also massive, stretching 2,400 kilometers across the west arch. The creation of the Himalayas is one of the clearest examples of the theory of continental drift, which is the continents move relative to each other millions of years. Put forward over 400 years ago by Ortelius, continental drift is an example of scientific theory, which is generally accepted as fact today. Whew, okay. So my tongue got tired there and twisted a couple of times. I skipped some of the words. Most of them I got. Okay. All right. So I'm pushing myself. All right. I'm pushing myself. And that step, every time I push myself to be faster and faster, pushes my limits. Okay. So pushes my limits. All right. So everybody tried that? Feel a little bit weird? Feel a little bit awkward? It's totally okay. That's how it should feel, okay? When you're pushing your limits, it's normal to feel awkward. If you're not feeling awkward, you're probably not pushing your limits enough, okay? All right? So that's what you got to do. Guarantee that you will speed up and be faster. Now, what I would do here as my fourth step, okay, is read the paragraph one last time silently in my mind, not aloud, at my fastest speed, at which I can still read each word clearly. Okay? Now, we can't really do that together, because then I would just be staring at the paragraph and reading, and you wouldn't hear anything because I'm reading it purely in my mind. But for the lesson's purpose, I can show you what I mean, okay? So in this last step, this would all be happening in my mind only. All of the previous steps I'm reading aloud. It's very important to read aloud for each of the previous steps, okay? But for this step, I'm reading silently and in my mind. So the Himalayas are a mountain range in Asia which separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. The Himalayas contain some of the world's highest mountains, including the highest point in the world, the legendary Mount Everest. The range is not only tall, it is also massive, stretching 2,400 kilometers across a roughly west-east arc. The creation of the Himalayas is one of the clearest examples of the theory of continental drift, which states that Earth's continents have moved relative to each other over millions of years. Put forward over 400 years ago by Abraham Ortelius, continental drift is an example of a scientific theory which is generally accepted as fact today. Okay, so that's kind of what would be happening in my mind. Okay, now my mind could be a bit faster because I don't need to move my tongue, but that's roughly what I'm doing. So I'm reading the whole paragraph at my maximum speed mentally without skipping words. If I make a mistake, I have to stop and go back. Okay, all right. So that's what you want to do. And yes, for Dovs, of course, mentally you can read much faster, okay? But you can read, you can improve your mental speed through your verbal speed. So that's this one last step here at the end, okay? The reason why those first three steps are very important is because if as when English is not your native language, you do need to know how those words are pronounced clearly to have clear comprehension. Okay, everybody good so far? Any questions about these 4 steps? So let's kind of revisit these, okay? So step number 1, skim read the paragraph for challenging words. Read each one of them twice aloud. If you don't know their pronunciation, check it online. Underlining more words is better than less. Sometimes I saw that students underlined not enough words, and then they get stuck and they fumble on many words, okay? The second step is read complete phrases and then read complete sentences clearly and aloud. Then this kind of interesting step where you're reading faster than you can, kind of jumping words. And for Dovs, you can do this third step a second time where you're doing it mentally and you're pushing yourself to read mentally faster than you can, skipping some of the words, okay? And then read, step number 4 is mentally read or silently the paragraph again and go through it. Now, to really build your fluency, I'll add one last step. It's kind of an interesting one, but it's well worth it, okay? It's worth doing this step. So once you have done this for each of the paragraphs in the passage, read the entire passage again at your maximum speed. Okay? So I'll let you in on a little secret here. Okay? A very important part of improving your fluency in reading is to read the same information more than once. Yes, it's okay to read new passages every day. Yes, it's okay to do new practice exams each day. However, it's very important to revisit passages and exams that you have already done and read them a second and even a third or fourth time. Okay? OSU definitely read each paragraph more than once. You read it up to 3-4 times. Okay? So this is practice strategy before the exam, OS. Okay, you don't actually do this on the exam. This is what you do before the exam in the weeks and the months leading up to the exam so that you can improve your reading fluency. Then you combine this with the comprehension practice that I showed you yesterday, and then you can really read quickly and understand what you read. Okay, so once you have done this, combine your comprehension and fluency practice. And after 6 weeks of doing this, you will be amazed at not only the speed improvement, but also your comprehension. Okay, so that's the trick. Yeah, OS, you would never do this in the real exam. Oh, God, no, okay? This is what you do before the exam, all right? How many students, this is a question to my members here, how many of you regularly go back and reread the same passage in the same week that you've done it? So I know a lot of you have practice exams from Cambridge books, maybe from Barron's, from our websites, from other places. How many of you actually take the same passage and go over it at least 2, 3, 4 times in the same day or at least in the same week? Okay, Ferdov says, I do. Nick Hill says, yes, I do. Okay. And so Amrita says, me. Okay, good. Abhishek says, no, I don't. Okay, Abhishek, you should. Okay. And Ferdovs, Nick Hill, Amrita, how many of you, when you reread the same passage, so honey, when you read the same passage again, how many of you try to read it faster than before? So how many of you actively go, okay, I'm reading this for the second time now, I'm going to read it faster than just 20 minutes ago or than I did yesterday. So how many of you actively do this? Okay, that's my question here, is how many of you actively think, okay, now that it's my second read of this passage, I will read it faster than before. So how many of you think about that? Purposefully. So not just, okay, I'm going to read this passage again, and then you read it at the same speed, but go, okay, now I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to read it faster. Okay? And he says, I will now try to be faster. Okay? Nikhil says, not yet, but I will do it. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so don't just think I'm going to understand more, but also think I'm going to read it faster. It's interesting because most students, and that was kind of a trick question. I knew that most people don't do this, but you should. So most people will think, okay, I will read it again and I will understand more. This is common, okay, but many people don't think, and I will read it faster. Okay, but you should. All right? So don't just think I will understand more, but also think I will read it faster. And then you're combining fluency and comprehension. Everybody good? Yeah? All right? Okay, so go through this practice, do it a few times. I guarantee you, do this practice a couple times a week for the next 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and you will be amazed at not only your comprehension, but your fluency improving, okay? And then magic will start to happen when you do this often, so you can actually train your reading to read phrases, and then you can even train your reading to read entire paragraphs. So when I read a book, right now I'm reading the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays. It's an interesting book. And what I find myself doing is I often, I'm not just reading words or not even sentences, but I'm actually reading phrases. So I'm looking at, or chunks. So when I look at this, I can read this whole piece just by looking at it, or I can read this whole piece just by looking at all of the words at once, okay? So you can even train your eyes to read blocks of text at one time, all right? It's a wonderful skill. It's just like training yourself to touch type while looking at the screen. The brain is quite an incredible piece of machinery, and you all have these beautiful, beautiful organic supercomputers on your shoulders. You just have to push the limits of your noggin, your supercomputer, to be able to do that, okay? All right. So how is everybody doing? Everybody's good so far? I haven't lost you in this chaos of information acquisition and reading strategy? Okay. Honey says, yes, I do that. I also try to read phrases. Yeah, and it's very tricky, right? It's much more difficult when it's not your first language, right? So, absolutely. Ferdov says, let's do it now. Okay, what we will do now, Ferdov, is we're going to read this passage and we're going to answer the questions together at a nice, comfortable pace. We have about 20 minutes left in the class. Let's do it, okay? So here we go from the top without even looking at the questions. The formation of the Himalayas. We're going to do it together, okay? So read with me. We'll read the passage. We'll answer the questions, get in some practice. You can do the fluency practice after the class with some other passages, okay? Here we go. The Himalayas are a mountain range in Asia which separates the Indian subcontinent from the rest of Asia. The Himalayas contain some of the world's highest mountains, including the highest point in the world, the legendary Mount Everest. The range is not only tall, it is also massive, stretching 2,400 kilometers across a roughly west-east arc. The creation of the Himalayas is one of the clearest examples of the theory of continental drift, which states that Earth's continents have moved relative to each other over millions of years. Put forward over 400 years ago by Abraham Ortelius, continental drift is an example of a scientific theory which is generally accepted as fact today. Continental drift theory posits that the continents have not always been in the position they are in today, and the existence of the Himalayas is strong evidence of this theory. But how does continental drift work, and how did it create the Himalayas? How does continental drift work? The Earth is not a solid rock. Instead, the Earth's crust floats atop a layer of semi-solid, very hot, 1300 degrees Celsius, material known as the asthenosphere. In this layer, convection takes place, bringing heat from the lower reaches of the planet up towards the surface. Hot gas and liquid rise up, replacing cooler and denser gases and liquids. This circulation of hot and cold pushes the plates of the Earth's crust, shifting the appearance of the Earth over millions of years. Where a plate goes and how fast it goes depends on the convection currents below the surface of any given point on the Earth. How did continental drift create the Himalayas? The short answer is India caused the Himalayas. 100 million years ago, what is now the Indian subcontinent stood 6,400 kilometers south of its current position, near the current position of Australia. Particularly strong convection currents below the region began to push India northward. Every year, the landmass came about 12 centimeters closer to Asia. That's about a centimeter per month. The approximate width of your pinky or little finger. This may not sound like a lot of movement, and it certainly is not on small timescales, but when taken in the context of enormous time frames, this distance becomes significant quite quickly. 12 centimeters per year is 12 meters per century, 120 meters per millennium, and 120 kilometers per million years. This means that the 6,400 kilometer gap could be closed in about 50 million years, and indeed this is what has happened. Over this immense time frame, India slowly but surely made its way northward on a collision course that could not be stopped. Approximately 40 to 50 million years ago, the India landmass collided with the Asian continent. With nowhere for the landmass to go, and with forces underneath still propelling it forward, the landmass went the only place it could go, up. Over the past tens of millions of years, the Himalayas have formed as a result of the unstoppable forces pushing India into Asia. In this time, peaks like Mount Everest have risen to over 9 kilometers above sea level. What's next for the Himalayas? The Himalayas continue to grow. In fact, they grow approximately 1 centimeter per year. Again, this may not sound like a lot, but it means the mountain range will grow about 10 kilometers in 1,000,000 years. This means that in 10 million years, the mountain range could be 100 kilometers tall. If a person could travel in time, they might see a truly colossal mountain range which dwarfed everything seen on Earth today. Other effects of the movement. The creation of the Himalayas is not the only effect of India's slow but steady crash into Asia. The same forces that push the Himalayas upward also create huge tension in the Earth's crust, which, from time to time, must be released, resulting in massive earthquakes. Some of history's most violent and destructive earthquakes came as a result of the Indian subcontinent's relentless surge into Asia. Interestingly, another common consequence of plate tectonics and continental drift, volcanoes, do not take place in the Himalayas. This is because the mountain range is so large and the crust underneath is so thick that any magma moving upwards solidifies before it can reach the peaks. In a sense, volcanic activity is extinct in the Himalayas. Okay, so I read that in 6 minutes, 30 seconds. Okay, so you don't have to read quite that fast. You can read about 50% slower and you're still within that 10 minutes. Okay, that was 6 minutes, 30 seconds. And this is a fairly long passage. It's closer to 800 words. How was that? Everybody okay at that speed? Was everybody able to follow along? Yeah, at least visually, if not verbally. Reading silently or reading aloud, hopefully. Okay. Remember, students, this lesson is recorded, so you can go back and you can reread with me again and again until you get that speed. Okay? All right. So everybody's like, yeah, that was okay. 6.5 minutes. Okay? 6.5 minutes. If you read that fast, you now have a good 12 minutes to answer. Okay, so step by step, piece by piece, this was very, very visual. It explained the Himalayas. It explained how the Himalayas happened. It explained the movement of the subcontinent of India, how it moved from around the location of Australia into the Asian plate, and what caused that movement, what are the results. Here we go. Let's answer some questions. Himalayan formation, moving land masses, rising mountains. The Himalayas are massive. They span over 2,400 kilometers, and their formation provides evidence for something. The theory that our planet's land masses have shifted positions over time. What's that? Ferdov says it's continental drift. Yeah, they mentioned this about 3-4 times. Okay, hopefully everybody got that. Continental drift. Okay, it's mentioned 3 or 4 times in the text. It's repetitive. When you have repetitive information like that, you definitely know that it should be the right answer. No more than 2 words. So right away you have a 2-word answer here, continental drift. Okay. So here we go. How does it work? The asthenosphere is the something of the earth that's below the crust. It is very hot and is semi-solid. Okay? So what is the asthenosphere in the earth? Okay? What is it? Keep it simple. So it's a noun. So the tells me this is a noun. And is the tells me that this noun defines this. So the asthenosphere is very good, Ois. Very good, Amrita. It's a layer. Yeah. It's the layer of the earth. Okay, great. Yeah, you don't have to overthink it. Layer defines the asthenosphere. Now, if you had to search, asthenosphere is a pretty easy word to search for, but you have to be careful making sure that you find the right word, which is layer. Okay? All right. Let's keep going. In this layer, this helps me with this question. In this layer, hot gas and liquid rise up and replace cooler areas. This process called something causes the changes of the position of the earth. So liquid rises up and replaces cooler areas. What is this process called? Okay, so hot gas goes up, cooler things go down. Okay. Well, maybe I'm not sure at this point. I want to go back, quickly check. So this is the process. So I'm looking for the asthenosphere. Okay. All right. So asthenosphere, there it is. And again, that fluency that I was showing you, so that reading fluency will help train your eyes to catch words quickly. So asthenosphere, in this layer, convection takes place, bringing heat from the lower reaches of the planet up towards the surface. Hot gas and liquid rise up, replacing cooler and denser gases and liquids. This circulation of hot and cold pushes the plate's Earth's crust, shifting the appearance. So what is this process called? You should have the answer now. This process called something causes the changes. Convection, circulation. Yeah. It's called circulation. This circulation. This process called circulation, because it's circling, so it's not actually convection here. Convection is a little bit different. Causes the changes of the position of Earth's continents over millions of years, creating the Himalayas. In short, the subcontinent of India caused the Himalayas. India used to be much further south, closer to the modern country of. This should be an easy one. Circulation was the right answer. They might take convection, but like convection oven, but circulation. Australia. Okay. Though India moved only 12 centimeters per year, this rate added up to an something amount of time. What is it? So it added up over something amount of time. How much time? Okay, so 12 centimeters a year, it's not a lot, but through, so it's an adjective here. This is going to be an adjective. Again, I can check here. So I'm looking for Australia. Okay, because I did my fluency practice, I can find Australia very quickly. I remember this was about here somewhere. Okay. So that's about a centimeter per month. Okay, this may not sound like a lot of movement, and it certainly is, but when taken in the context of enormous time frames, this becomes significant. The centimeters per year is 12 meters. Okay, kilometers. So, okay, over this immense time frame, India slowly but surely made its way northward and collided. Okay, I think enormous and immense, either of those two words are okay, right? So here we go. Enormous amount of time. Okay, sure, enormous or immense, both of those would be okay here. Eventually, the force of India pushing into Asia created the highest point on Earth. Okay, what's the highest point on Earth? This one should be easy. You should not have to check for this. Okay, Mount, you can write Mount like this. Okay, for short, MT. Very good, Abhishek, nicely done. Mount Everest. Okay, that's a gimme. It's an easy one. Mount Everest. Make sure to write Mount Everest. Don't just write Everest. Mount Everest, okay? So it's Everest Mountain. Mount Everest. Okay, good. True, false, not given. Here we go, nice and fast. Okay? In millions of years, the Himalayas will be much taller than they are today. Is that important for the passage? Yes, it is. Is it true? Yes, it is. Okay, very easy. It said that in 100 million years, they could be like reaching into the clouds or something like that. So it said it's going a centimeter in millions of years. Centimeter a year, million centimeters will be 100 kilometers high, right? So true. India and Australia were once connected. Is it important to know this for the text? Not really. So I would go with a not given here. I didn't visualize it, and I don't think it's important to know whether or not India and Australia were connected. We don't know that. It's not important. We didn't visualize it, so it's not given. Okay? The tension between India and Asia has caused mountains to grow and earthquakes to occur. So the tension between India and Asia. Is it important for the text? Yeah, it is. Is it true that this tension, this pressure between India and Asia has created mountains and earthquakes? for number 9? I think it's true. Okay. It's important and it's true. I don't know why you guys are saying false. Why would 9 be false? India's crashing into Asia. It's causing mountains, the Himalayas. They're growing, and there's also earthquakes there. Why is that false? Why do you think that's false? Is it because of the word tension? Tension is pressure. Okay, and so this is another synonym for pressure or conflict. Okay. So, number 9, the tension between India and Asia has caused the mountains to grow and earthquakes to occur. So, number 9 should be true. Okay. All right. Yeah, tension is fine. Okay. Tension, pressure, smacking into it. Volcanoes are active in the Himalayas. So we're talking about mountains. Mountains and volcanoes are somewhat synonymous. Okay. Tension is continental drift for Dovs. So continental drift and tension are kind of the same. Okay. All right. Number 10. It's important. Okay. So it's given. Is it true? No, it's false, right? We read that. There's no volcanoes in the Himalayas. And if you know that, then you can answer that, right? So just make sure that it's given, okay? So, and make sure your false is a clear F like that. Okay, this is not good to have that because they don't know if that's true or false. So don't have that piece there, just like that, okay? All right, so true, not given, true, false. All right. Okay, questions 11 to 13 match the following concept with the details: continental drift, convection, and asthenosphere. So theorized more than 4 centuries ago. So 4 centuries equals 400 years. This was Abraham Ortelius. What's the answer for number 11? Nice and quick. Okay. Pay attention to the paraphrasing. So 400 years ago, this theory was invented. Very good, Ois. Very good, Abhishek. Great job, Rashika. Nice job for Dobbs. It's A. It's continental drift. Okay. States that the Earth's land masses have shifted position over time. So it says that, okay, they have shifted position over time. A, B, or C. Continental drift, convection, or asthenosphere. States that the Earth's land masses have shifted over time. What's that one? Number 12. It's A. Okay. Continental drift is the theory that states that the Earth's land masses have shifted over time. So it's A. Okay. Oh. Pay attention to this one. Note, by the way, you may use any letter more than once. Okay? All right. So, continental drift, continental drift. Heat rises from the lower levels of the Earth towards the higher levels. So, heat rising is convection, B. Okay? So, A, B. Right? A, B. Okay? Asthenosphere is the layer of the Earth that's under the crust. Okay? This one you shouldn't answer, all right? Because if you got these questions correct, okay, so let the questions help you here. This is why it's important to get the early questions correct. The asthenosphere is the layer of the Earth that's below the crust. Okay? So if you got this one correct, you shouldn't get any of those with C. Does everybody see that? Everybody sees that? As long as you get this one right, you shouldn't get any of those wrong with this choice. Okay? All right. Great job, everyone. So again, remember from this class to learn fluency. Okay? Separate the practice of fluency from comprehension. We just completed this reading passage from start to finish in 15 minutes. Okay? in an interactive format. So you should be able to do a passage in 20 minutes. Okay? All right. Okay, everyone. Well done with your reading this week, members. Remember, everyone, tomorrow you have a Q&A session, so you can ask me questions and I will give you answers, okay? So any question you have about IELTS, the exam, maybe the English language, tomorrow is your chance to ask me, okay? So be here, be with me in tomorrow's class, ready with your questions, and we'll have some fun, and we will clarify some points of inquiry. Coming up in 30 minutes, so don't go too far. In 30 minutes, we will finish the essay we started yesterday, that challenging task 2 essay, and I will be back to do that with you shortly. That's it for now, everyone. You're very, very welcome. Abhishek, Nikhil, Byron, nice to have all of you here. Visit us at aehelp.com for lots of videos, strategies, exams, much, much more. gltshelp.com for general IELTS. Okay, see you soon, everyone. Bye for now.